Hey guys, we are back with another episode.
Watch what's happening live.
If you say that again, you're never coming back to Cocktails with Curt.
All right, guys, we're just finishing up. I think we're on number 3 for mojitos.
Yeah.
Good drink.
If I start slurring, stop listening to me.
This is the topic here, Mark. I don't want you to slur on because it's a hot topic.
Yes.
And that topic is credit.
Yes.
It is something, I think credit is a person's like lifeline to the world.
Financial freedom.
It's financial freedom, or it could be financial prison, depending on how good or bad your credit is.
Right.
But one of the questions that always comes up, or inquiries that comes up with, hey, I have a challenged credit score. They've spoken to another lender or another agent who's told them they can qualify them for a 580. Now, I know you could qualify someone with a 582. But what we always stress to folks is that you shouldn't try to barely make it. If you are struggling, if you are barely at a 640, you probably should be prioritizing your finances differently so that you will be not only a homeowner, but you'll be a long-time homeowner, and we won't be listing your house or finding it in foreclosure a year later. So with that said, can you just talk a little bit about, in terms of credit and, you know, the challenges that come with someone that you could qualify for 580 versus somebody that could qualify with a 680, and what the difference in that process could look like?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, none of the three of us are trying to set you up to fail. Right. Unfortunately, there are people that will. In certain cases, lenders can actually go down to a 580, although it can be difficult to qualify. But, is it the right thing to do? You're going to end up with worse financing terms. I would advocate to folks, let's work on your score a little bit. Let's get your score up so you get a better rate. Let's make sure it's the right time, because you don't want to go buy a house, let it go back, and then you can't buy another house for many, many years. So, just because you can qualify doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it means waiting a while to get yourself in a better position or be on the job a little longer, and then make the right choice to buy the house at that time.
That's something we stress, right, in a lot of our clients and videos, is that just because you can afford it, meaning you can qualify, doesn't mean that you're really ready. And we always talk about, and Mark can talk about this as well, as I'm sure he's a homeowner himself and has processed thousands of loans himself, is that when you get to the closing table and you have that monthly payment, that payment can change in terms of, not your interest rate's going to change unless you're in an adjustable rate mortgage, but that your property taxes can go up.
Correct.
Your homeowner's insurance can go up. And so that person with a $1,400 payment that just made it, the next year their payment could be $1,500, right?
And they're not prepared for it.
Right. So if you would have waited 6 more months and you were at a 4.75%, but Mark could analyze your credit and say, do this, this, and this, and all of a sudden you could qualify for a 3.99% rate, wouldn't you rather do that? So talk a little bit about how people can improve your credit score, what tools you have, and just in general about credit limits, the credit ratios, and all that kind of stuff, debt to income ratios that affect that credit score.
Well, lenders have tools today we didn't have many years ago, and one of them is, if we pull your report, we can go into a scenario and see how to get the credit up. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be paying down a credit card. If you've got a card with a $1,500 limit, you owe $1,400, that is affecting your score.
Right.
You may be able to pay it down $300 or $400, and your score will go up 30 or 40 points. So those are some of the things. Now, if another thing I say quite a bit is if you have no revolving credit at all.
And we get that a lot. Where some people think that if they don't have any credit cards, that makes them a better candidate than someone who has bad credit in some cases. Yeah.
No, but I tell people this all the time. If you have no revolving credit, you should get a credit card or a secured card.
Sure,
that will, if you pay it on time, make your score up 30 or 40 points. So if you already have cards, you probably don't need another one. But if you don't have any credit cards, it's a good idea to get one and charge a small amount and pay it on time.
Now let me ask you this, Mark. So you mentioned that lenders have tools now that you guys didn't have before. So for the renters out there, and I know a lot of us, we pay a monthly subscription fee to whether it's Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, and a lot of them have those score simulators. So if I'm a renter, what is the tool that I'm using on one of those websites? Is that any different than the tool that a lender would use, or is it the same sense of accuracy from what I get from that versus what you would give as a lender?
If it's directly with the repository like Experian or Equifax, it's probably pretty accurate. The Credit Karma and stuff's not quite as accurate. But, I would say before paying a monthly fee, let's talk. I mean, we don't charge anything for
Right.
it, and I can do an analysis and tell you what to do without you having to pay for it every month.
Are you guys listening? It's something free. He said call
Free,
him, it's free.
absolutely
You get a free service from us and from them. You can't beat that. Let's talk about something that's really depressing to talk about, but it's a reality of the housing market, and especially what happened in 2008. What happened is people went into what's called short sales, right, and foreclosures. Mark, you want to talk a little bit about short sales, what that is, and then the foreclosure, and then somebody that's gone through that, maybe how they can rebuild, and for other people, like what's the consequences when you go into those two programs?
Well, if you have a short sale or a foreclosure, there's going to be a waiting period before you can buy another house. Now, depending on the type of financing, that waiting period may be 2 years, 4 years, or even more. A short sale is when you owe more on the house than you can sell it for. So you would go to your mortgage lender and say, hey, look, I need to get out from under this. I owe $200,000, the house is worth $175,000. And the lender can approve you. It's their choice to say, okay, we're willing to take the
loss with you,
lower
basically.
amount.
Yeah.
But it does affect your credit very negatively. So if you can avoid that.
So a short sale and a foreclosure, does it affect your credit in the same way, or is one better or worse?
It's more about I think a foreclosure would probably hurt your credit a bit more, but not a lot more.
Okay.
But with a short sale, it's typically 3 years.
Okay.
You need to wait 3 years after the closing of the short sale to buy another home.
And how about the foreclosure?
Let's talk about bankruptcy. Surprisingly enough, you can go bankrupt, and sometimes, depending on the financing, it's 2 years.
Okay.
Foreclosures.
Well, we don't encourage you to do that.
Foreclosures depend on the type of financing, but if it's a conventional loan, the minimum waiting period is going to be 4 years, and oftentimes 7.
Okay, so see, that's why we're telling you guys why it's so important to do it right the first time.
Yep.
Because you could be in the prime of your 30s, have kids, all that kind of stuff, and you were so hungry and so thirsty, and some agent or some lender wanted the business so bad, right? And they got them in at a 580. They were just maxing it out. We always talk about you have to be prepared all around in life.
Yeah.
401k, investment, real estate is part of that portfolio. So it's like when you go, right, guys, to like a Macy's or Kohl's, and you open up one of those credit cards and they charge you a 35% rate. That's probably, for the person that does it and doesn't pay it off, that's telling you I really can't afford this, right? So
it's
that's
about being
why-
financially responsible. I know
Yeah.
we had a couple of videos a few weeks ago, actually, where we talked about that a lot. It's about being financially responsible, and unfortunately, they don't teach this in class. They don't teach credit. They don't
It's a
teach,
shame.
and it does a disservice to a lot of people because we live in a society now where everything is about immediate gratification, and you want it now. You don't want to wait for 6 months. You want to wait for a year, and you jump out here and you take on what would be, or what probably is, the biggest investment that you'll probably ever make as far as buying a house goes. And then sometimes you actually end up getting a lot less house because you didn't wait, because now you're paying such a higher interest rate that had you waited, you'd have been able to get the $400,000 house maybe. So I think it's just about being prepared and educating yourself, and also taking advantage of all the information that we're giving you for free.
And one thing I also want to talk about, because we get this a lot, and I think it's about credit as well, is people ask, when should I go for my pre-approval? How soon should I talk to a lender? And my advice is always, if you kind of you pay your bills on time, you have good credit, revolving credit, you kind of know you're in a good financial position. Isn't it about 90 to 120 days, Mark, for a pre-approval?
There's no bad time, but I would tell you that if you're not going to buy for a year, it might not be the best time because the credit report's going to expire.
Right.
But if you're thinking about buying a home, I would say 5 or 6 months
5 to
is
6
a great time for us to, unless you know your credit's great.
Yeah.
It's a good time to take a look at it. And I also want to tell folks too, if you have a mortgage and you find yourself in a hardship, the worst thing you can do is avoid the calls of the mortgage lender. They don't want to
They don't go
foreclose. Lenders do not want to foreclose. But if you avoid the calls, and
leave
they
them
don't
no
hear
choice.
from you for a couple of months, they'll start. If you keep in touch with them, generally they'll work something out for you.
That's good to know.
That's really good to know. So guys, credit scores, super important. We have the person and tools to help you get to the score. And again, the overall
it's
lesson,
free.
and it's free. The overall lesson is, our mission is always to get you the best deal, set you up for success. So get those, calls in, talk to Mark, have them analyze it. Like he said, 5-6 months out. And if there's anything to fix, he's your guy to kind of walk you through, whether it's opening up a secure credit card or telling you what to pay down to get to that score that you need to get the best interest
And
rate.
to that point, though, I just want to point out as well, because I know sometimes people can have, the extreme opposite.
Right.
Like they have great credit, but they're trying to get that perfect credit.
Oh, let's talk about that if we have some time.
Yeah, I
what's
think we
the
have.
highest credit
I
score?
think the highest credit score is an 800.
You can actually be in the 800s, but I would tell you, as mortgage lending goes, if you have a 740 or above, it's all the same.
Really?
Doesn't matter if you have an 850. If you have a 740, you're going to get the best rate.
Okay.
So
That's great
how
knowledge.
much above your 740 doesn't really matter.
So I mean, from hopefully what you guys have all taken away from what we've said is, yes, you can in some cases get approved for a mortgage at a 580, but in order to qualify for any of the down payment assistance programs or just to have a more seamless underwriting process, you really want to be at least at a 640 and you can higher than
Agreed.
that.
Right.
Agreed. So
At 740, you can do whatever you want.
You're going to get the best rate with the lender at
Right,
740.
right.
so stay tuned and thanks, Mark. A lot of useful information, guys. I hope you guys are all taking advantage of it.
Thanks,
Free
guys.
stuff.
Free stuff. Make that call.
Cheers.